Today in the wood yard, we're going to be cutting, splitting, stacking, and then we're going to cut some more. Here we go. Today is a beautiful day in the wood yard. There's no wind. It's 30 degrees. They say the sun might even come out. It might be a great day. So yesterday, for those of you that weren't here, which I don't know why you wouldn't have been, you can go back and watch it. I cut down four maple trees that were right in this area right here. They're piled up right over there. As you can see, I just chucked them over that way. And so today, the plan is, I'm gonna start with what I said I was gonna do yesterday. I'm gonna actually rip down these big rounds from the popple tree that I cut down that was right over there where the gas is. And I'm gonna get those ripped so that I can lift them onto the splitter. Then I'm gonna split them. I'm gonna chuck them over that way because I took that 2 rows of 2/3 of a cord of oak that was there. I loaded that into the trailer yesterday. So we're gonna stack all this wood, which is all the popple tree, right there. Then I'm gonna take the splitter and move it right over to there where that pile is. I'm gonna split that pile and I'm gonna stack that pile. So that's what's first on the agenda, and that's gonna take me, I don't know, a couple hours to do all that at least. After I get that done, then finally, we're attacking this pile right here. I'm gonna start cutting here, chuck the rounds this way, and that's why I want to get this all cleaned up, because I want all the rounds that I cut here chucked back over this way, because I'm going to pile them right in here, because that wood is dry, is ready to be sold, and I want to get rid of that so I can get another load put right in that area. But this load is going to go here all the way through this way, right in here, kind of close this in. I'll just leave enough space to walk between the pine here and the oak that I'll put right here. Then I can get a whole nother load out there. That's the plan. So here we go. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to rip, or some guys call it noodling. I'm going to rip these pieces down to size because they're like 200, 250, 300 pounders. They're just heavy. And you can see when I'm cutting here, the saw is so sharp that it just jumps right into the wood. And I actually have to hold the saw up so it doesn't just dive down and bog up. And one of the suggestions one of the guys had in the channel is I should take off my chain sprocket cover on the side, and that way it would clean itself out a lot better. I'm going to try that the next time. So when I rip these down, my saw cuts so fast, it's got so much power, I mean it's plenty powerful, that I don't like, you know, using my arms all day long whacking on these pieces that are like hitting rubber. This is very wet wood, and it just doesn't split very good. I'm just digging out all the extra noodles in there so I can cut it down. Now when I cut down, I try not to go all the way to the bottom, right down to the ground. If I can, I try to go down within like an inch or two, and then I'm going to flip it over here. And when I do that, then I take my Fiskars X27, which is my favorite splitting axe / maul, and give it a couple whacks and just pop it apart. Okay, 3 whacks, there you go. So here's another one that I'm going to whack on when I split it, rip it down, and I try to go as far as I can. One of the things you might notice is when I get down to the bottom, I pull the saw out usually because I want to not hit the ground on the other side, so I'll pull it out right about there because I knew I was getting close. A lot of times I'll look for that mark that I have on my bar at the 16-inch mark, because that's about how big the piece is. That way I know I'm not sticking the saw on the tip into the dirt on the other side. So yeah, I flipped it over, so now I'm just going to give it a whack, and there it pops apart. And yeah, instead of killing yourself trying to whack on pieces, just ripping them it's a lot easier on your body, and let the machine do the work. So here's another one I'm ripping down. You can see there's a bunch of mud and dirt on the other side, and I scraped that all off before I started cutting, so I wasn't cutting through it. I just about hit the ground there, it looks like. They're really close. You can see the saw just wants to get in there and dig. So now I'm going to start pulling it out. See, you can see the tip is just about inside, so it's not sticking out, because I knew I was getting close to the dirt. And so yeah, there I just knew I was pretty much close enough. Roll it over, and then I think this one, if I remember right, yeah, this one, it's a knot right there, so it's a nasty piece, and I didn't want to try to split it with the splitting axe, so I just rip up, stick it back in the slot, the cut slot, and just cut it up. So it's a heck of a lot easier than whacking on pieces for hours and wrecking your shoulders. After you've done it thousands of times, you start to just let the machine do the work, which is why I need to get more machines to do more work for me. So here I'm just ripping this one down, same thing. You can see the needles just flying out, but yeah, this saw is nice and sharp. It cuts really good. Usually works great until you hit the ground, which does happen when you're cutting noodles like that. Yeah, that one just got stuck a little, so I just flipped it over. And I think I'm going to tip it over and I'm going to cut up again on this one, just like we did the last one. Just stick it in the slot and then just rip up. Instead of cutting into the ground, it's easier just to flip it over. You know, some of these pieces might only weigh a couple 100 pounds, which I can lift up, but it's just easier to not have to. So this was the bottom, very bottom of the tree. I'd already cut it in half once, and it still weighed a couple 100 pounds. I mean, it was just heavy. So I'm ripping it down into a quarter, and I'll do that a lot on trees. Once I get them to be like, 25, 26, 27 inches up to 30, 32, 33, 34 inches, just cut them into quarters. If you've got a log lift, that's great, but you still got to move the pieces around somehow. Unless you got a tractor with a grappler or something so you can move them, you got to somehow get them down to size so you can handle them. So there you go, it's cut down to size. So that's it for the ripping. There, they're ripped, and it didn't take too long at all, just a few minutes. For those of you that think I should have pounded on these with a splitting maul or my Fiskars X27 splitting axe, these are very knotty pieces of popple, and they don't split very good at all. Because this is the bottom of the tree, the trunk part, down especially where the root flares go out. And the knots that are on there, very tough to split. I tried whacking on a few of them, and it's not worth the effort. And I rip a lot of the big stuff because my splitter is the Easton Made Ultra. I do not have a log lift on it. My log lift is named Caden, and he's not here today. And even then, we rip some of these down just so we don't bust our guts open trying to lift them. Because some of these chunks are, they're 200 to 300 pounds, especially the very bottom chunks where the root flare is. They're heavy. It's just not worth it. And I ripped on a lot of the big stuff that is just a little more than I want to lift. Like I've said before, I've reached my personal limit on hernias. It's 1, and I don't want another one. So what I do is I rip them down. My saws are extremely sharp. When I'm cutting, I don't know if you could notice, but if I let the saw just fall, the saw actually gets clogged up too fast. I have to actually hold the saw up so it can clean itself out. And somebody mentioned to me in the comments that I should take off my chain guard plate on the side to take this off. But I'm also only going to cut these few here. But if I cut a bunch of them in the future, I'm going to give that a try, and I'm sure it'll clean itself out much faster. It makes sense. So that's something worth trying in the future when I get another big pile that I'm going to do. I only had these few to do, so I just left it on. So yeah, I got them ripped down. Now I'm going to get them split and keep moving on. Here we go.
Splitting is complete, so now I can start stacking. I'm going to go right here. I try to get some runners down from a pile that was there, so I'm going to start stacking right here, migrate this whole pile over this way so this is opened up. And I broke out a brand new pair of KNOTTY gloves, pigskins. I'm going to try those out, and I'm kind of looking forward to it because they're excellent gloves. I'm just going to walk over here and show you something if I can get through the pile. There we go. So what I do a lot of times when I'm splitting, obviously, when you're handling wood that's wet like this, that has snow on it. Today it's like 30, 32 degrees. So everything's kind of starting to melt a little bit and it's getting wet. So your gloves get wet pretty fast, leather gloves. And you got to wear leather gloves when it's cold and you're handling wood. And unless you want a lot of slivers, or if you're super tough, not like me, I'm not that tough, your hands can get full of slivers and blisters and things. So anyway, I wear gloves. You saw the review I did the other day, maybe a week or two ago, however long ago it was, on gloves, and these are the new ones. What I do a lot of times, the reason I'm mentioning this is when I get a wet pair of gloves, I set them right on the hydraulics like this, or sometimes I'll set them up on the motor or somewhere where it's hot, and as I'm splitting, these will dry off within, 15, 20 minutes, half hour at most. I don't wait till they're totally soaked, but if they're damp, you put them on there and they'll dry right off, which is kind of neat. So anyway, we're gonna get over here and do some stacking now. It was here, and now it's over there. Magic. It just magically jumped over there. I cleaned this all up, so I have an open area now where I can cut from that pile and then chuck the rounds over this way. But before I do that, I just move the splitter over here. And yes, I just pull it over. No machinery required. It slides pretty good, actually. I am going to split the maple from yesterday that I cut up. So I'm gonna get that split. And I changed back to the 4-way wedge. I took the single wedge, it's over there, I took that off. I'm really glad I got the single wedge. For those of you that know that they change out pretty easily. It's just a pin you pull and you can actually raise and lower the wedge up and down. But I found this height that I have it at right now works really nice because you get pieces that are like this size right here that only need to be split once, which is about a, 4 or 5 inch piece. Goes right underneath and you get one split out of it, which is all you need. And so the 4-way is what I use 95% of the time. The only time I get the single wedge out is when I get knotty, nasty, gnarly elm or stuff that's really knotty, the big chunks, and it works really good to break them down, which is what I did here with this. So this whole pile, if I had to guess, it's probably a full cord because it's 6 feet high. There's 2 rows plus this here, so there's for sure a full cord there. So that is done, and now I can get splitting on the maple right over here. So that's what's going to happen next. Here comes the pile. I'm going to shrink it and stack it. There it is. It is splittaged, and the pile was over here. As you can see, it is now over here. And I'm just gonna stack that right with this popple, and there's a little bit of oak in there too, so that's just gonna go right here. I can tell by looking at it, it's about a face cord or a third of a cord. So all those trees are pretty small. Now, as I was splitting, and I've seen this quite a few times in trees, I thought of something that might be interesting to some of you. There is a phenomenon that happens to trees in the woods. Not to all trees. Generally, smaller trees have this happen, and then when they get bigger, you don't notice it as much. But I know what this is. I want to know if you know what this is. There's a maple tree, and see how it's got this crack all the way up and how it's wrapped around. Almost looks like a couple of butt cheeks. I know what causes that. Do you? In the comments, tell me what causes that. I had a bunch of trees I planted here. When I first moved in 18 years ago to this location, I planted hundreds of trees. All of these, I planted everything all the way through here, everything all the way around, all the way over to the pines and a bunch of these over here. The woods back there was there, but I planted a lot of them. When I planted them, a lot of these trees had this happen to them. Tell me what it is. Put it in the comments. It'll be interesting. There's got to be some sharp woodsmen and women out there that will know what that is. So now we're going to do some stacking. Another thing of beauty that I have created. It was here, now it's there, and it ended up being quite a bit more than I thought. I thought it was going to only be about a third of a cord or a face cord, and this is 7 feet high by 8 feet wide. There was a little bit of popple on the bottom, like maybe a foot or so. So this is actually about 56 square feet, and for a face cord, it's 32 square feet as you look at it from the front. I know people will say that's not how it's sold. It's supposed to be cubic feet. But when you look at the front of it, one row of the maple, if it was 4 feet by 8 feet, would be a third of a cord. And this is well more than that. So it's probably real close to a half of a full cord. So here's the whole pile that I created today. And so yeah, I threw a bunch of the bark and stuff I cleaned up over there, over on that hill. So there is the pile. And now I can finally walk over this way and I can start cutting on these right here. So that's what I'm going to do next. I only have a couple hours of daylight left. I think it's like around 2:30, 3 o'clock. So a couple hours tops is all I got. But I'm going to cut as much as I can, and that'll be it then. So here we go, cutting time. there it is, a pile of wood. I kind of ran out of daylight. I had enough for today anyway, and soaking wet. The running the saw when it's 30 degrees, no matter what you got on your sweat. Anyway, I got a pile of it done. I made a little dent into the logs here. Started like right here, and I got this section done, so still lots to go. But I got a good start on it anyway. Not as much as I would have liked, but a little dent. Whew. So, I think that's it for today. I think I had enough. So, I think you know what to do. You got to do the finger thing, do a little poking, hit the like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And I'll see you tomorrow right back here in the wood yard. And you need to get outside and get cutting. Good night, Irene.